Everything that I knew about the Christian faith, about Jesus, was a set of rules to follow as opposed to a continuous journey. I was homeschooled for kindergarten, first, second grade, and then we went to my church's school. Going from middle school to high school at 13, it was kind of a culture shock. Heavy influences everywhere, and a lot of different people who didn't talk like I did, didn't think like I did, said words I knew I wasn't supposed to be saying. Felt kind of like a sponge, and everything I saw and everything I heard was becoming part of who I wanted to be because, I just kind of wanted to fit in with whoever I was around at the time. My buddy says, "Hey, we should go play lacrosse." I'm like, "What is that?" And I put all of my time into it, every day after school, every day before school, during school, I had to stick my hand, I was playing. I loved the companionship was wonderful. Something I hadn't felt like I really had much in my life. Some friends on the lacrosse team introduced me to marijuana, had a bunch of that. The way it made you feel was, different from reality in a lot of ways. And that's where I really wanted to be, is not where I was. Quickly transitioned from just a recreational thing to cope to a necessity for life. That's when the alcohol started. I met my wife at college. We both had some church hurt. And so we both just really enjoyed not having to follow all of the rules that we were given our whole life, because a lot of those, when you grow up with rules, as soon as you don't have them, that freedom is invigorating. The hangover became normal. The drinking, whenever available, became normal, and it was weird if I didn't have it. I did not know how to process anger or sadness. I was very easily offended. Everything hurt my feelings. Everything made me angry. I was very, very picky. And then by the time 2023 rolled around, I got to the point where all I did was drink. I didn't have to feel. I'm just going to drink. And I'm going to think about it. I'm going to drink about it. One thing led to another, and a coworker I had at the time said she needed some help. And I was like, "We got a home for the first time in our life. We got space. We got an extra room. Can we help out?" And we both agreed. And I'll never forget it. I got more drunk than probably ever before in my entire life, and ended up cheating on my wife. And didn't remember it much just because of the sheer amount of alcohol I had. So I told my wife a couple days later of what I thought I did. We got our confirmation, and that was absolute rock bottom. I thought life was over. I prayed. I prayed hard. I don't want to be here anymore. Luckily, I woke up and said I changed my mind. I do want to be here. And by the grace of God and out of the goodness of her heart, Renee gave me yet another chance. Chris Carson happened to show up to Renee's job one day with the church van because she was the office manager at a mechanic. The Holy Spirit told him to go there and told him that there was somebody he needed to talk to. And he told Renee, he said that your husband should come talk to me. I don't know why, but he should. I went into it very apprehensively meeting Chris because I did not want to be honest. And I remember we were talking about my faith, and I kind of described it without saying the words, that it was just rules. And he says, "It sounds like you've never personalized it." And I was like, "What do you mean?" He says, "It sounds like you don't believe that it's for you." And he gave me a challenge to read over the crucifixion story from the garden to the burial and resurrection, picturing myself at the crucifixion very, very pointedly, verse by verse, step by step. Imagine you were the only one there, because I don't think you really believe it. And I did not like to hear that. I've been in church my whole life. My dad's a preacher's kid. I'm the preacher's grandson, and my mom's the spiritual leader in our household. And I was like, of course I believe it. Well, who are you to tell me that I don't? It's my faith. Although Chris was very pointed in what he had to say and not sugarcoating, it kept tugging at me that I need to go and actually read the book. And so I took a chance to possibly prove him wrong, maybe learn something, and eventually did it. And I remember just absolutely breaking down and being like, this is for me. Even if I'm the only one there on that hilltop, he would have done it anyway. And I cried about it for what felt like weeks. And came back to Chris, and I was like, you're right. I found out the hard way that I will always fail, that relying on myself is always bound to be a bad idea. I realized I cannot rely on myself to do things that only God can do. And I found a lot of freedom and hope in letting him handle everything. God has been more than I ever thought that he could be. He took something that I thought was non-salvageable, and he restored every part of it. And I've talked to some people like, I don't even know who you are anymore. I'm like, good, because I don't either, but I'm a child of God, and that's all that matters. 180 doesn't even describe it. I mean, it felt like I went from the bottom of the jail cell to on top of the palace. It's incredible. He has done abundantly more than I ever thought he could, and every day he just keeps getting better.